Good morning, and a happy summer, beautiful day here in Lake Wobegon, or Walden Pond, maybe. Oh, Eau Claire, that's where we are, Eau Claire. I'm Kathy Ryder. I'm Membership Services Liaison for the board this year. Sorry, I'm just waking up. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation. We are a religious community who commit ourselves to diversity. We hope to nourish human differences, those of gender, race, age, ability, sexual orientation, political views, culture, class, and religious belief. Welcome to all who treasure freedom of conscience in the search for truth. We promise to do our best to provide you with a spiritual home. We extend a special welcome to our visitors today. We hope that you will follow our Facebook page to participate in Zoom and receive announcements about special events and our religious exploration classes. Please sign up for the weekly email. There should be a link in the comments section on our Facebook page where you can sign up. I'd like to draw your attention to recent announcements. For those in person, they're printed in your order of service, and there are links in the UUC newsletter and the weekly UU Connections for those of you watching online. And we have one special announcement. Thank you to all of the volunteers who supported the UUC Brat Stand on Friday and Saturday. That was at Festival, Southside Festival. And all of those who supported and came and bought the food. We made $741.51 for UUC. Thank you. August 5th, 6th, and 7th, the Social Responsibility Committee will have a brat stand to support their justice efforts. Please sign up and come for that. Don Mowry or Phil Swanhorse can answer any questions. Thank you all for joining us today in person and online.
Hello, my name is Linda Littrell, and I'm the UUC Village Fiddler, and I'm going to play a hymn from the Gray hymnal called The Lone Wild Bird.
Associate this morning. My pronouns are she and her, and our opening words come from Susan McGinn. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here and together at home in this evolving place. home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this dewy morning, even as it reaches towards a hot, high noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together. I'll also be lighting the chalice. If you want to join me with reading the words in your program. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. Our readings today come from an article by Megan Marshall titled Reconsidering Thoreau in a Burning World. I'd first realized while reading Walden as a 15-year-old in high school English class. I remember it now, the feeling that Thoreau had written his book for me, because I, too, had lived in a simple cabin by a lake and fronted in my own way the essential facts of life, to borrow Thoreau's famous phrase. In that cabin, I learned how little materially was required for contentment. Who needed electric lights, hot running water, a refrigerator? On the rocky timbered landscape outside the rough-hewn door, I'd learned to find my way in the woods, on mountain paths, and even off-trail, climbing peaks high above the tree line, with only the sun and my knowledge of the terrain to guide me. On the lake itself, I discovered I could lie down in a rowboat on calm days and drift, staring up into the dome of blue sky overhead until, as Thoreau's companion Emerson wrote in Nature, I could feel the currents of the universal being circulate through me. Maybe I'd learned the independence and self-assurance it took to tweak Thoreau for his sexism during my summer weeks in the Sierras. Does Thoreau's message of inward seeking hold up in our burning world? Yet Thoreau had stayed in his cabin on Walden Pond for only 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, and then written a book that could stir a 15-year-old high school student in her windowless classroom 200 years later and 3,000 miles away. My own writing will never reach that far, but the path that brought me here wasn't a wrong one, and Thoreau led me to it.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Julianne Lepp, and it's great to be with you this Sunday. And this Sunday we're talking about Thoreau, as you might have guessed, and we started last Sunday with a little background on Thoreau. Now is the time in our service where we have our giving, and our 50-50 Share the Plate will go to the Chippewa Valley Lgbtq Center, which is our neighbor over here, and they are a huge neighbor to the Chippewa Valley. They make a difference in people's lives, young and old, trans, non-binary, and LGBTQ persons of all identities. So if you would like to donate, you can donate in person as the giving goes by, or you can donate online at uueauclair.com. We even have a text to give because we're cool like that. It's 84321. So the offering will now be given and very gratefully received.
Please join me in reading what's printed in your program. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Explore your own higher latitudes, Thoreau counsels, advice that, even if it had been more widely received, arrived far too late, in 1854, to stem the tide of Yankee migration west or to stall the annexation and exploration of native lands well underway. For many today, the American West has come to stand for environmental disaster. Its newly prolonged fire season exhibit one in any argument for the catastrophic effects of unremitting development and the mandate tragedy of climate change. Does Thoreau's message of inward seeking hold up in our burning world? Few readers of Walden know that the year before Thoreau retreated to the pond, he'd accidentally set a fire that burned nearly 2,000 acres on the outskirts of Concord and cost his townsmen $2,000, the equivalent of $60,000 today, in lost property. Stopping to fry up some fish on a canoe trip down the Concord River with a friend in late April, the 26-year-old Thoreau failed to note the dry grass surrounding the tree stump where he'd made his campfire, which swiftly spread, leaping and crackling wildly and irreclaimably toward the wood. The pair tried stomping on the flames and beating at them with a board, then fled for help, the friend by canoe, Thoreau along the road to town. "What can I do alone against a front of flame half a mile wide?" he wrote in his journal when he could finally bring himself to record the event 6 years later. Thoreau wrestled with feelings of guilt over the incident, and some have argued that his sojourn at Walden was a form of penance. His most recent biographer, Laura Dasso-Walls, pointed out that in the years following, wildfires became increasingly common in New England, ignited by sparks from railroad engines passing through the wooded landscape. Thoreau joined his neighbors in putting out his own fire, helping to dig trenches and set backfires, the same tactics employed by crews fending off the Caldor fire until they tamed the demonic creature to which he'd given birth. And he continued to volunteer in similar emergencies or when farmers recognized the need for controlled burns in the surrounding woods, a practice learned from the Penobscot Indians who still camped seasonally on the riverbank. Ultimately, Thoreau offered himself absolution. The land he saw needed the regeneration of fire, whether started by his hand or by lightning strike. He found in the process yet more proof of his prescription for self-renewal. In spring, Thoreau's fire had raced over the fields, leaving them sere and black, he wrote in his journal. But by midsummer, the same land was clad in a fresher and more luxuriant green than the surrounding even. Shall man then despair? Is he not a sprout land too, after never so many searings and witherings? The cause of the Caldor fire remains a mystery. Its sister fire, the Dixie, which crested the Sierra 150 miles to the north and has burned close to 1 million acres, may have been sparked by faulty electric equipment. But no one has yet suggested the same for the Caldor. During the month of August 2020, 14,000 lightning strikes were counted on the state of California. Climate change has brought more dry thunderstorms in summer, rendering even some natural conflagrations man-made. Thoreau may have argued to himself that the fire he set was as if the lightning had done it and taken heart from the greener landscape left behind. Yet some Concord residents held him responsible for burning one of the last remaining groves of virgin forest in the state. Those trees were gone for good. Where will the rain come from to turn the Sierra's burned-over slopes green again? Even more than the potential incineration of the family guest book, my cousins and I feared the loss of the 2,000-year-old juniper that stands 10 yards from our front door. The fire didn't come that close, but Cal Fire hand crews were under orders to fell trees standing near cabins and likely to catch burning embers in their limbs. The ancient tree had seen Washoe Indians pass by on their way to fish in the Echo Lakes. Ham Chagwin trek past on snowshoes. My siblings and cousins and my own children play on the slabs of rocks in its shade. when Echo Lakers were finally allowed back to their cabins in late September to shutter them for the winter, we learned what mattered most. The juniper had been spared. A U.S. Forest Service biologist was there too, surveying the terrain with an eye toward remediation, reseeding the hand lines cut and backburned by the firefighters. In wilderness is the preservation of the world, Thoreau famously wrote. We now know that already in this day it was not too soon to ask, can our world preserve wilderness?
So you might wonder why we're talking so much about Henry David Thoreau. Well, Henry David Thoreau was one of the Transcendentalists, an early Unitarian, and just a minute, I'm going to put this down. He was an early Unitarian and a contemporary of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he was also a prodigy of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Henry David Thoreau went to, like I said last Sunday, went to school with Emerson at Harvard, and he was a person that lived his own life. He definitely was not swayed by his classmates to drink or to smoke or to live in ways that he found contrary. He kind of walked his own path. And in fact, walking was one of his favorite pastimes. And it was through walking that he noticed things. And I don't know about some of you, but this summer I have felt called to be outside after this long, tough year, to be outside and to be renewed among trees and forests and woods, and to feel the kiss of sun on my skin, to see the pollinators coming to all the blooms in Phoenix Park or my own garden, and to be renewed by wildness, whether that's in my front yard or if it's in a local park. And there's something regenerative and beautiful about being in the presence of nature that we don't necessarily find inside. And in our own sanctuary, we have a beautiful stained glass, and we also have windows out into the world. And it was told to me by someone in our congregation that we didn't want to have stained glass in every window because we wanted to see the beauty of the world around us. And I think that is incredibly fitting for Unitarian Universalism. We also talked last Sunday about Henry David Thoreau being a person who existed to find wonder in the world. And that's one of the things about transcendentalist thinkers of that time, was that wisdom is not necessarily found in a heavy tome or in a professor or in a minister or a person in front of a congregation. Everyone has the power to experience beauty, to experience wonder and transformation. And we heard Linda giving us the dulcet tones of her fiddle, and we've heard the beauty of our choir, or the beauty of Debbie's wonderful reading about Thoreau and climate change. And there's something that we experience. And I think when we wall ourselves off from beauty and awe, we are shutting down our lives. And I know sometimes I've done that to protect myself, like I don't want to let in things because I'm feeling protected. But sometimes we have to go out in the world, and that's something that is exciting about wildness and adventure. If you have read Walden, or if you're familiar with Henry David Thoreau, he would often amble into the woods on his own pace. He made it his study to make a living in the least laborious way possible. He wanted to mend a fence, or to help a neighbor, or to observe a bird or a plant. And for some, this seemed like lollygagging, especially in our culture where we are measured by what we produce or what we do. What was this man who lived for 2 years? His mom brought him cookies. He had people at Walden. It was not like Robinson Crusoe. What was he doing out in that wood? Well, what's really interesting is that for a number of years, people valued Henry David Thoreau for his writing. and the impact that he had on American literature, on the American ethos of wilderness and the frontier and being a part of nature and that wonder and awe. But what happened a few years ago, I want to share this article. I was looking into this idea. I had not known that Thoreau had burned so many of Walden's woods, because I've always thought of Henry David Thoreau as this mythic figure. He wrote Walden. He lived in the wilderness. I didn't realize it was until I went to Boston how close he was to civilization. And to go to Concord and to see Walden Pond, it was an experience. And I expected to be in the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't. And so it's again that experience versus what you find in books. It opens your eyes. But anyway, he was a very methodical note taker. And not only did he walk, but he measured and he noted and he noticed. He paid attention. And so I want to share with you about how he helped scientists today understand climate change. So when he was standing by the pond, he would record the amount of ice and the time that the ice went out of Walden Pond. He would make observations on birds or spring flowering. And these notes became a backstone when they were found just by chance to a 2016 study. A team of scientists from Boston University examined Thoreau's records and compared them to their own leaf out. And these are the dates that leaf buds began, and spring flower notes from the same area. And they showed how citizen science, this 18th century guy, he didn't have instruments, he had his eyes, he had notebooks, he had a pen, but he made a difference on how we understand climate change because he had data. We've known that something's happening despite climate change deniers. We know that the world is going through global weirding. I don't say global warming anymore because it's just global weirding. That's my unofficial term. But those notes made a huge difference. Like here, the authors of this study said, few people are aware that the warming from anthropogenic climate change is affected when leaves appear on trees, when they change color or drop in the fall. And even fewer people appreciate how much this change affects insects and birds and whole ecosystems, and even humans in many important ways. I read in one article about how Thoreau would go out on the pond, and he would ice fish. And there was one time he was talking to this Scotsman who lived in in Walden Woods as well. And in fact, there were other people who lived in Walden Woods at the same time that he did. But he was standing there and he said, "It's okay. You can ice fish. It's okay. You can drink water." And but now the person who had written this memoir or autobiography about the autobiography about Thoreau, he said you can barely ever go out on Walden Pond now because the ice is too thin. And I know many people have lamented about skiing season up here or up north on Superior, the ability to drive on Lake Superior. And so our world is changing. And people like Thoreau, who noted the beauty and the importance of wild, were the canary in the coal mine. He made not only a difference in American thought and Unitarian Universalism today, but he was able to provide data. And so I like to think that we should value lollygagging in the woods. We should value the awe and experience of making time for leisure, making the time to note, to breathe, to slow down. So often, I think we get caught up in this idea that we must produce goods, we must work endlessly. But what are we trying to do with that. We create tiredness. We create a lot of waste, a lot of plastic waste, a lot of, do we need all these plastic things? I was at the UUC brat stand at Mall Drive, and it was a lot of fun. And I was looking across the way, and I noticed that there is an environmental store that, of course, the name is escaping me right now, but there's a new store in, does anybody remember the name of that store? Okay. Well, anyway, it's near the festival on Mall Drive, and we were curious, what's in that store? And there's, bamboo cutlery, there's reusable straws, of course. And so I've been thinking in small ways, it can be overwhelming to think about climate change, and it can get really heavy quickly to think about the changes. But, what if every citizen reduced their garbage and composted? What if every citizen tried to use less plastic and buy less junk that they don't need? What if every citizen made small changes in their lives? It makes a difference. Or ask, if you're at a restaurant and they give you a styrofoam container, ask if they have something, ask not to have a styrofoam container, or bring your own container. So it's all these little pushes that make a difference. Not only for us, but our participation in the wildness of the world. It's good. I know I feel really excited and nerdy when I can get the compost into my garbage can and it's more than my trash bags. I get really excited about that. And sometimes my mother-in-law is the police of what is recycled and what is compostable. She's amazing. She will tell me all the things, and it's really nice to be able to put that at our side of the street. So we go back to Thoreau. What does a guy from the 1800s have to tell us? And Ralph Waldo Emerson did a eulogy for Thoreau, and Ralph Waldo Emerson was definitely a mentor. He helped him financially. He helped him in the world of getting lectures, and he held him in great esteem. They used to walk together in the woods, and I made some notes. I printed off the eulogy that was written by Emerson for Thoreau. You can find it online if you look. It's in the Atlantic. And it was just kind of fascinating. I was curious about what do you say about someone, when they die, who was like Thoreau and your Ralph Waldo Emerson. And so he said he would walk in the woods, and he said one of the things that he noticed, this is what he said to Emerson: "See these weeds," he said, "which have been hoed at by 1,000,000 farmers, spring and summer, and yet have prevailed, and just now come out triumphant, all out at lanes, pastures, fields, and gardens. Such is their vigor. We have insulted them with low names as pigweed, wormwood, chickweed, and shad blossom," he says, Thoreau says. "They have brave names, too, like ambrosia, stellaria, amelantia, and amaranth, etc." And so he valued the weed, which we so often have seed thrown to the side, as a flower, as something valuable. And the weapons that Emerson said to observe that Thoreau had was the microscope, or he would pick up things and put them in his pockets, or he would have patience. He would, as part of he rested on the bird, the reptile, the fish, would come back to resume habits. To note scientific notations requires a lot of patience, a lot of being present, a lot of observation. And Emerson says it was a pleasure and a privilege to walk with him. He knew the country like a fox or a bird and passed through it freely as paths by his own. He knew every track in the snow, ground, and what creatures had taken the path before him. One must submit abjectly to such a guide, and the reward was great. Under his arm, he carried an old music book to press his plants. So he didn't care about the book. He pressed his, he had a diary and a spyglass for birds. He had a microscope, a jackknife, and twine. He wore a straw hat, stout shoes, strong gray trousers to brave shrub oaks and smilax, and to climb a tree for a hawk's or a squirrel's nest. He waded into the pool for the water plants, and his strong legs were no insignificant part of his armor. And on the day that I speak of, this is Emerson talking, he detected in the wide pool these flowers. And he goes on to talk about all these brilliant things that Thoreau noticed. And on that day, I told him he must beware of finding and booking, lest life should have nothing more to show him. So he's like, are you sure that you're not just going to find everything? And Thoreau said, what you seek in vain for half your life, one day you come full upon all the family at dinner. You seek it like a dream, and as soon as you find it, you become its prey. And so otherwise, you become enamored of the world, and the world becomes your garden, and it's the seeking that matters. And his interest in flowers and birds lay very deep within him. And I think there's a real gift to this unique soul. I wonder, in today's terms, if he would have been called neurodiverse. He had such a focus and such an oddness, and I use that term not lightly, just a difference about him that really caught people's attention. He had this genius, but he did not get along. He loved his family deeply. And in fact, somebody asked him what he was going to do for his career, and his mom said, will you go forth and lecture? And he got tears in his eyes at the thought of leaving home. And so I think he felt things very keenly. And I wonder what we do with that. We think of what does wonder and awe do for us in a changing world? Yes, we need to have climate change legislation. Yes, we need, as a world, to change the way we do things. But it's also a change of spirit. It's involving ourselves in nature, involving ourselves in the lives of the world. And I think if we do it like, I have to do the recycling, climate change is going to kill us all. Okay. Yes, it's heavy, but it's also amazing. It's amazing that we can be a part of science. It's amazing that we can go forth in nature. I've looked at these recent images that are coming back from the newest telescope or satellite, and Webb telescope. Thank you. I knew I was missing something. This is what happens when you ad-lib and you have brave, smart Unitarians. And these things are wondrous, and I hope they inspire a whole new generation of scientists. I hope they inspire people to wonder and want to go out and find nature and space and to go out. I'm going to close with a few examples of how wonder affects the world. And this is a book that I found. It's called The Nature Fix: Why Nature Makes Us Happier, Healthier, and More Creative by Florence Williams. And And it's one that I've just been kind of dabbling into because it has these really wonderful little stories. And this title of the chapter is, "You May Squat Down and Feel a Plant." So have you squatted down and felt a plant lately? At the lamb's ear is one that I think Tracy Hirsch or someone from the UUC Plant Exchange, maybe it was Greg Maurer, introduced me to. And I remember just feeling it, and it's like you could just pet it. And so once upon a time in Finland, there was little forest spirits who put spells on people and who were too noisy and who treated the forest with disrespect. The victims would experience a condition called metson petito, which translates as being covered in the forest. In this state, they suddenly found themselves unable to get their bearings. Nothing looked familiar, and it was kind of an intense fascination with the world. They would hallucinate and experience supernatural phenomena. And this talks about in Finland that metson petito, and I might be pronouncing that wrong because it's in Finnish, is well documented in the 19th century. And like other religious experiences, it was more commonly experienced by women and children who were allowed to have emotions, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that it was experienced by women and children. Maybe men weren't allowed to say that they experienced metson petito. But the celebrated poet Kokoshinimi dedicated a poem to the condition in 1930. And I am getting somewhere with this, I promise. And he read it aloud to this author in this sonorous Finnish that she had no idea what he was saying. And they were on a small island in a Helsinki archipelago. And he said, metson petito is not necessarily negative. It's about getting lost in beauty. It could be a taste of freedom, nature, union, and joy. And it's a little bit like forest bathing on acid, the author said. So I am not advocating hallucinogens, but I am advocating that when you get in nature, you can get lost in it. And you can let go of some of the stress. You can breathe in some of the green. We have Sherman Woods near our house. And I every time I go in it, I think, why am I not in this place more often? And I went on a walk with Jennifer Lohman and totally got us lost. And I didn't tell her till after we got out of the woods that I got us lost. But the paths of Sherman Woods just kind of amble and go this way and that way. And my sense of direction is terrible. It's terrible. But I was just so enamored by, what's around this corner? Oh, look at that tree root. Oh, look down in the creek and look at the fish. And then by that time, I'm like, well, I think if we go that way. And so there was that wonder and that excitement of getting lost even in little suburban Sherman Creek. And so we think of the times that we need that. We need to be able to let go and be transformed. So there's a term for that. And then the other thing I wanted to note was walking. Walking. Last Sunday I talked about how that was the balm of COVID for me, to be able to get out of my house and to move. And whether you have movement issues or not, there are ways to even go out in the front yard and just smell a rose or smell the milkweed, whatever you have in your front yard, and to dislocate yourself from the ordinary. Henry David Thoreau said, "When we walk, we naturally go to the fields and woods. What would become of us if we walked only in a garden or a mall?" I think that would be okay too, but you got to think about the 1800s. And so people like Walt Whitman, Thoreau, and Emerson reminded us that we have to experience and to put down our books, to engage, and to feel and see beauty. So when you think of climate change, I definitely invite you to check out that environmental store or check out, our habits as a city, as a country, as a family, and as a congregation. We've done that. But also to think about, what is the spiritual implication of awe? What does that call us to in our own lives and in our own change? Amen.
Please join me in reading from the program for Extinguishing the Chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words come from Chris Rothbauer. May our lives be reflections of the beauty, peace, and joy that is possible in the world. I just realized it was unison, I'm sorry, so thank you for jumping in. And may the love we find in this place sustain us as we go our separate ways. Thanks.